Ready to open? Welcome everyone to a regular Board of Selectmen's meeting for March 21st, 2022. Call the meeting to order. We have a full board and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence to show our appreciation for men and women in uniform. Thank you. Conflict of interest disclosure. If any item on the agenda, if you identify any item on the agenda as a conflict of interest, when you get to that agenda item, please announce that conflict. We've got several meetings to review and approve. So the first is March 7th, 2022. So there's a budget committee workshop and BOS regular meetings. We'll just go down through.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the minutes from March 7th, Board of Selectmen Budget Committee workshop notes.
Steve's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds. Corrections, comments, all those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we accept the March 7th Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes.
Steve's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds. Any corrections or questions here? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we accept March 10th Board of Selectmen Budget Committee workshop notes.
Steve's motion. And Ethan seconds. Any corrections or questions here? Yeah, what's that?
Is that the 10th?
This is the 10th.
Okay.
Nothing? Okay. All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, can you hear me, Shelley?
Yep.
Okay. Make a motion we accept March 14th budget, Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee minutes.
Steve's motion. And Ethan seconds. Any corrections or questions here, Shelley?
No, it's just not a correction, but it's a question. Under the town office building, Steve had questioned during the budget process that 25-01 for the town office building, that he thought that we had already appropriated funds to repair the front entrance. And that amount just hadn't changed throughout the process. I just wanted to get an update, because I don't think that was answered.
Yes, Joe.
Madam Chair, there was $2,200 carried forward from fiscal year 2019 that was expended on the front ramp area. I think that did the paving. So there's still obviously some things that need to be finished, which is where the $15,000 request in this year's budget comes from.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve March 16th, 2022 Board of Selectmen Budget Committee minutes.
Steve's motion, Ethan seconds. Any comments, corrections, questions here? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, do we do the 17th?
We're on the 17th.
March 17th, 2022 Board of Selectmen. I make a motion we move March 17th, 2022 Board of Selectmen Budget Committee minutes.
Steve's motion and Ethan seconds. Any corrections or questions here? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up, public to speak on a non-agenda item. What did I miss?
I have two.
You have
March 16th.
You have two March 16th. In your
In my packet.
in your packet.
And they have different fonts.
Oh, let's see.
I have two for March 16th
That's
and
what
different.
I have one. I think. have one.
I just figured the top here had a hiccup.
Yeah.
I had two as well.
You have two, too.
Okay. All right, so the one that I have is this font.
Okay, so that's this one, and then I have this one.
Yeah,
That's you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if that had come from us, it would have a punch. in there.
My agenda, is that the agenda?
It looks like an agenda.
it would, yeah, it would.
Okay, thank you, yeah. Sorry.
Right, public to speak on a non-agenda item. I don't know who's zooming in, Joe. We can't see that.
We have Carl and Lisa Stimes, Dave, Donna Perry, Galaxy S20 plus 5G, Stephen's iPhone 11, Valerie Cole from Seniors Plus, and our town clerk is in the room with us also.
Okay. Boards and committees. I think there are just a number of minutes there for your records. Consent items, number 7. Main PERS is first. I don't have anything in my folder. I've got the town meeting warrant that's first.
Madam Chair, the only information for the board is in my memorandum. I just wrote a couple of sentences requesting that the board reconsider the 5-year buyback. After you met the other night, I got thinking about some employees that worked with us for 20, in some cases even more years than that. There would be no cost to the town for them to join up. I thought you might reconsider that.
And so that was, and that was included in Article B 22E1. No.
It is in the article, Madam Chair.
Yes, okay.
The duration that the board had voted to select the other night is in that article. But I checked, and you can change it with no real problem if you decide to.
Okay, yeah, that's in D. Sorry, it's a.
The reason I thought about it, if I could, Madam Chair.
Go ahead,
is,
please.
Some of the folks that have been here a while, if they can buy back 5 years, if they're, I don't want to use ages, but if they're 5 years of retirement, so if they're 60, I can say that, they can buy back 5 years. But if they've worked here for 20 years and have the means to buy back 20 years, they may be interested in that. So I just, after I thought about it the other night, I thought that it would be something I'd want to talk about with you tonight. I really think it would be good if the town could offer that to those folks who put in a long time with us. If they have the means to buy it back, or if they have the desire to buy it back, it would be good for them to have the option. There's no cost to the town for that.
Thoughts from the board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is this, are you looking for us to change a policy or to strategize a policy in regards to this?
Madam Chair, I'm asking that the board reconsider the 5-year cap on number of years allowed to be buy back by employees. And that cap would pertain to years worked for the town, not for somewhere else. So it would be years that they worked for the town.
Because this is something that Maine PERS allows us to set. It's not they have it within one of theirs that 4 years of military services is considered. Yeah, so go ahead.
My
Ethan.
question, if there's no cost or hindrance to the town and it's a benefit to the employee, were we just uneducated about it before and we just went with 5 because if it doesn't hurt us and it helps them, it seems like a winner.
Yeah, I think it was just may have come up during some of the.
It was a recommendation from Maine
from
PERS.
Maine
We saw
PERS.
that in a number of presentations.
Just wondering why they
And they recommend a cap, but I agree. I don't think there's a need for a cap.
Go ahead, Shelley.
So then it goes back to my question about if somebody is eligible to retire, and then they're hired back, like how much time in between there? I mean, I think the state actually has put some restrictions on that, but I, without knowing that, I'm not really sure.
It's actually happened, you know,
It
where.
happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens
Yeah.
all the time, where they
Where someone retires, then they get
collect main PERS, and then they go back to that employer, they can, so.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact if they have the means to purchase. Whether they come back to work or not, that's incidental to what they're purchasing, in
So,
my opinion.
so that'd probably be something we discuss afterwards. Would that be a policy, Joe, or?
Main purse allows that. I don't know the details on that. We could discuss it after the fact. I don't think that we're, knowing our employees, I don't think we're anywhere where that would be happening right away with any of them. So you have some time to figure that out, how you want to handle that.
It's not worded that, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Steve.
it's not worded that way on the warrant, is it?
No, I mean, well, so Article B22 in your warrant, or on page 3, Article B22D, to allow its eligible employees who are currently employed by the town on July 1, 2022, who elect to join main PERS, to purchase credit for up to 5 years of prior service upon the employee's full payment of all associated costs.
So then we should discuss it now.
Yeah, we
Take
do,
it
we
off
have
the
to,
warrant.
yeah.
If it's on the warrant, then we gotta go back to town meeting to do it.
Yes, so, and it has to be on the warrant.
Right, that item will have to be in the warrant, but the decision of how the language is written is solely up to you. So you can pick 5 years, you can pick 0 years, you can pick, and my advice would be at this point to allow them to buy back any and all service with the town.
Can we just strike the buyback? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Can we just strike the buyback aspect of the warrant, the way it's written, I mean? Just not even put it in there, so that gives them the opportunity to buy back.
It doesn't.
It's a requirement, yeah, it's one of the things that they needed answered to write the warrant. And the other night, the board picked 5, and then after I thought about that, over the weekend, I said, geez, you know, actually, it's not over the weekend, it was the next day, I was like, you know, maybe we ought to think about offering it to the folks that work here for a long time. There's no cost to the town. They have to make those arrangements on their own. It's between the employee and main person.
Yeah. Main PERS sets that buyback rate.
Do you have a recommendation of what the article should say?
Yep.
Right.
You do
Would it just be a number substitution, Joe, or is that your thought?
To purchase credit for any and all years. of prior service. That's how I would phrase it. So as opposed to purchase credit for up to 5 years, I would suggest to purchase credit for any and all years of prior service.
with the town.
With the town.
Well, with the town is implied, but you can put that in there if you'd like. I asked that question of main person. They said internally, they know that that means with the town. But if you'd like to put with the town in an article, you certainly have that authority.
I think it's a good idea to include it. You know, it just,
It's no cost,
yeah,
helps them, makes them smile.
so, okay. Purchase credit for, and we're striking up to 5 and adding for any and all years of prior service to the town of Rangeley.
Well, I don't know that the town of Renton should go in there, because it's an example with the chief. When the chief French, when he moved here, he should be able to use his years with his previous employer.
That's something completely separate that he has, that's all set with a prior employer.
Sure.
Oh, I'm positive.
Okay. Because they're able to bring those forward.
Main PERS, yeah, yes.
Because remember, that was part of the criterion we talked a lot about in terms of enticing people, that they had main PERS that would want to come here if we had it.
I think Go ahead, Sharon.
There's just so many different types. So I'm not sure what that person's type is, but there's some where they don't pay Social Security, like with teachers and things like that.
Oh, no, I understand that. Yeah.
So then they can't move that to go to another one.
No, they can. He could, if you're in main PERS at Yarmouth and you come to work for Rangeley, everything comes forward.
But if you already have so many years of service, like, so I just don't know what the service thing is. I mean, I don't know what the circumstances are with that
No,
individual.
no, my point is this. Take Chief Prince as an example. He has main PERS down there. We don't have it here.
Right,
And there's X amount of years in between the time he had it there and he does that. He's allowed to buy that back and pull all of that forward. That's my point.
Working for the, if an employee, yes, if someone works for the employees for the town of Rangeley and there are gap years, yes, that's what this allows.
And he's gonna be able to bring, okay. As long as you're sure that he's allowed that.
Well, I mean, we don't want to discuss a particular circumstance, but so I guess thinking of it, what we don't want is for someone to come to the town of Rangeley, work a year, buy their retirement and be gone, where we've offered them a job and this wonderful benefit. And so for someone who say worked, 15 years for another municipality, and now, we won't have them as long as working for the town of Rangeley. So that's why it's key. If they had main PERS before, they're all set. That carries. So if anyone had main PERS for a prior employer, and this gets voted in by the public, they can purchase all those years they worked for the town of Rangeley to contribute to main PERS. So the gap is covered. That's what we want, is for them to, they've already put in the time with the town, obviously been a good employee if they've been with us all those years, and so they can buy those. And so what Joe is asking is for us to strike that limitation of up to 5 years. That main PERS recommended, kind of like main PERS also recommended the 30 days, and we want to give them instead a 5-year window of 30 days of enrollment. I'm sorry.
Okay, so was your wording that you were saying out loud, was that your motion?
It certainly can.
we've got to rescind the one that we made last time.
So we,
Right.
okay. So first, Selectman Wall is correct. We have to rescind the reading of the current language in Article B22D. Can we just strike it in general that we, instead of reading it verbatim, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so we need a motion from a board member to strike Article B22D.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so that's Ethan's motion and Effie's seconds. B22D. Okay, further discussion. Any questions on rescinding? All right, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. So that language has been struck. That was, yeah, Ethan and Ethna's motion and second.
Ready?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to add Article B22 subsection D in this new form, which I shall read, to allow its eligible employees who are currently employed by the town on July 1st, 2022, who elect to join Main PERS to purchase credit, to purchase any and all prior service upon the employee's full payment of all associated costs, the town will not participate in the purchase of prior service, and so employees are responsible for paying the full liability associated with the service.
Second.
So you're comfortable, Ethan, with having any and all years of prior service with the town of Rangeley not included?
Yeah.
Okay. Being first says it's implied. So I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
Ethan's motion, I'm sorry, did I miss a second?
Me.
Ethan's a second, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Steve's got that puzzled look.
I'm just afraid that we're gonna revisit this again. I think I would need some more clarity, but let's get a motion on the table.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, we have 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
I'm not opposed to the concept. I'm opposed because I think it should be visited by legal one more time, only because, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Next up is the fiscal year 22-23 warrant. So Joe, you want to discuss the handouts?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So tonight I gave you 2 new copies. The first one is the warrant that I sent out to Kristen Friday lunchtime-ish, afternoonish. She sent back just before midnight last night. It has a lot of markups in it, but none of them are really involved. There are a lot of housekeeping items. The first one is probably the most critical one. Article A1, and I apologize to the board. I didn't realize until I brought it in here a while ago that it's not in color. So the underline is new, the strikeouts are obviously strikeouts on color line. I did not realize you got black and white. So just a little while ago, so I apologize. But Article A1 has been reintroduced to the warrant. That is a requirement that the town elect a moderator to serve at the annual town meeting. And then I added the language and to permit the moderator to appoint an alternate if necessary. And then you can see Kristen's notes in the column. We can number these however we want, and the numbers have been corrected in the clean version of the report put together. So don't let the numbers hang us up. So that's a requirement that we have a moderator even for a secret ballot election. So that has been in there before. It just was omitted in this round. So that's been corrected. The majority of the corrections, if we get down to Article B1, the language was written for the open town meeting. So to see if the voters of the town of Rangeley will vote so and so, that's a leftover from open town meeting. It's suggested by Kristen to rephrase it to say, shall the town fix the following 2 dates when taxes on real estate are due and payable? And that's a common theme throughout. So you'll see that same recommendation throughout. And I do echo that recommendation. And the clean copy has those changes made. Substantively, the dates are September 1st and February 1st. That's pretty consistent with history. The next one is 4% interest assessed for delinquent taxes. That is the number as set by the treasurer state Maine. We double check that. Would you like me to continue to go through each one or?
Shall
So is this one that we received in the packet, the corrections from this?
The one that was on your table tonight, it looks like the one in the packet is the corrections from this.
Okay, because it says where we do B1, they should change those.
Correct. So at the very beginning, Madam Chair, A1 had been omitted from the one that's in your packet. A1 was reintroduced by legal and by the town clerk today. So disregard the number changes
Okay,
for the most part. So once you get into the Bs are all the same. The attorney had changed the Bs and the Cs. Disregard that. I'm happy to go through each one, Madam Chair, and it's probably not a bad idea that we do,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah,
I'll try to
please
be quick. Article, let me read this one actually. Article B5, shall all fiscal year over 21-22 overdrafts be closed from fund balance? Article B6, shall the Board of Selectmen be authorized on behalf of the town to sell or dispose any personal property or equipment? That's a standard language. B7, shall the Board of Selectmen be authorized on behalf of the town to rent, sell, and or dispose of any real estate acquired for non-payment of taxes? It's all the same, except for the end is changed to strike out also to authorize the selectmen, and should put in or number 2 to keep any parcel or part thereof for municipal purposes. B8, shall the Board of Selectmen and Treasurer be authorized to borrow in anticipation of taxes? Article B9, shall a rate of 3% interest be paid on related taxes and related sewer service charges pursuant to NY 36 B10, shall tax abatements and applicable interest be appropriated out of overlay? So this is the first one where there's a recommendation for the article to pass. When there are appropriation items, Kristen says that's where it's appropriate to have a recommendation attached. If it's not an appropriation, there's no need to have a recommendation attached. Article B11, shall the selectmen and treasurer be authorized to accept on behalf of the town gifts and cash donations and appropriate said gifts and donations for the purpose designated? Shall the board, this is B12, shall the Board of Selectmen be authorized to carry forward specific account balances from the current year to the same accounts for the ensuing year for the purposes of each account? B13, shall the Board of Selectmen and town manager be authorized to enter into leases, contracts, and agreements on terms and conditions deemed necessary and appropriate? 14, shall the Board of Selectmen and town manager be authorized to apply for and or accept funds from any grant opportunities pursuant to the grant policy? B15, shall the town authorize monies to be expended from the sanitary funds as prescribed by policy, ordinance, and law to apply the sole intent of care and maintenance of town range cemeteries? 16, shall the town vote to appropriate all the money received from state for snowmobile registrations? That's the same language as the past. B17, shall the town vote to authorize selectmen to appropriate from surplus a sum not to exceed $25,000 pursuant to undesignated fund balance policy, as they deem advisable to meet unexpected and unanticipated expenses in emergency? Last year, this was one that had the old language in it that said, "but some." Remember, you corrected that, put them out in here. And today we have not used that. B18, shall the town vote to appropriate all motor vehicle excise tax revenue to the annual loan payments for completed and future road projects? 19, shall the town vote to authorize municipal officers to spend an amount not to exceed 3/12 of the budgeted amount in each budget category of last year's annual budget during the period from July 1 to October 1, or until the budget is passed for 22-23 year, and then any budget article fails, or such expenditure is legally required or necessary to provide essential service. That's a little bit different than what we had last year, but I like this wording better. Shall the town vote on all warrant articles by secret ballot at the 2023 town meeting, which is next June. So this June 14th, 2022, they will vote to determine whether they would like to do this again in the following year. If they vote no, that would mean open town meeting. Couldn't be open town meeting. Article B21, shall the board be authorized to expend, let me read the whole thing. Should the Board of Selectmen be authorized to expend up to $50,000 from the first installment of the coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds, AKA American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds from the federal government for the purpose of providing a one-time retroactive premium payment to employees who work during the COVID-19 state emergency? That is the article that you directed me to compile, and Tracy and others put that together for us. So thank you for them. B22, this is the main first article. Shall the town vote to join Maine Public Employee Retirement System as a participating local district effective July 1, 22, and to offer special plan 2C to full-time police officers and firefighters Side note, that would include your chief police officer and the chief firefighter, who worked at least 40 hours per week, 52 weeks per year. B, to offer regular plan AC to all other full-time employees who work at least 40 hours per week, 52 weeks per year. C, to exclude all other employees who work less than full-time, including its elected appointed officials, from participating in that. D, to allow its eligible employees who are currently employed by the town on July 1, 22, who elect to join Main First to purchase credit for any and all years of prior service upon the employee's full payment of all associated costs. Now, will not participate in the purchase of prior service, and some employees are responsible for paying the full liability associated with the service. E, to adopt the provisions of 5 MRS 1825C as enacted by PL 2021, etc., as allowed by Main First Rule, Chapter 803 for its non-participating employees with optional membership who previously declined to participate in Main First and comply with our requirements. I, beginning in 22, annually offer eligible employees who have been employed for less than 5 years, and in 2022 eligible employees who have reached 5 years of employment between November 1, 21 and November 1, 22, the opportunity to join Main First on a prospective basis during an open enrollment period from September 1 through November 1, and to provide Main First with documentation of each election made by eligible employees. So that was the discussion the board had the other night. And then 2, to withhold employee contributions for employees who join under this provision on an after-tax basis and to remit them to Main First. F, to authorize the town manager to sign the agreement between the town and Main First employees, public employee retirement system. So that is one warrant article that covers all eligible employees. Are you tired of listening to me yet, Madam Chair?
No.
Okay. Article C1, to see if the voters of the town raise will vote to raise and appropriate $180,000 for the capital reserve budget. Board of Selectmen recommends 180, vote 5-0. Article C2, shall the Board of Selectmen be authorized to expend money from reserve accounts for routine purposes? C3, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $7,000 for the express use of capital equipment? C4, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $5,000 for the express use of the Rangeley Health Ride? EX1, so we're in the EX article now. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or appropriate $80,060 for selectmen legislative? EX2, shall the town vote to raise and/or appropriate $223,844 for administration? EX3, shall the town vote to raise and/or appropriate $77,402 for assessment? EX4, shall the town vote to raise and/or appropriate $151,466 for finance? EX5, shall the town vote to raise and/or appropriate $133,586 for planning? EX6, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $76,474 for buildings, town hall? EX7, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $82,100 for buildings, public safety? EX8, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $64,719 for town clerk? EX9, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $58,895 for property casualty insurance? EX10, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $15,000 for TIP district administration? EX11, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $287,128 for fire and rescue? EX12, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $337,182 for police department? EX13, shall the town vote to raise and or appropriate $57,008 for animal control? EX14, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $70,507 for EMS? EX15, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $149,955 for fire hydrants? EX16, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $39.50 for health officer? EX17, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $1,007,811 for highways? EX18, $521,607 sanitary sewer. EX19, $452,788 solid waste. EX20, $41,785 for airport. EX21, $238,941 parks and recreation. EX22, $51,818 cemetery. EX23, $112,576 public services director. Excuse me a second. EX 24, 35,117 public facilities maintenance. EX 25, 25,550 for culture. EX 26, 2,000 for general assistance. Now we're in the donation articles. She had some notes on the donation articles. We can take a right there.
Yeah.
Look at those. So the note from legal, Madam Chair, is while all these articles should be reworded for secret ballot format, it is more important to follow specific language used in the petition. So whatever the language is in the petition is what we've accepted, got to accept, and what's got to be printed. So she just noted there in a few places that the language is not consistent, but it's what was on the petition. So I don't know if you want to go through those line by line. Happy to do it.
Yeah, I'm seeing some head shakes now. Yeah, these aren't sums that are decided by the town, so. So the board is okay with jumping to the DM, I'm sorry, the revenue budget article, which is the last one.
Right, RV1 has, we plug in 275,000 for undesignated fund balance. And that number is based on the summary sheet that I gave you this afternoon, this evening. And that's an estimate. That is an estimated revenue. There'll be more discussion about that as we move ahead, working with the tax assessor and so forth. So,
Thank you, Joe. Questions from the board?
Couple of questions.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Under the carry forward, budgeted for 2022, 41,000, we used nothing. At this point, when does that move, or will it?
it will. I have to refresh my memory on what constitutes that carry forward, to be honest with you.
Finance director up there?
No, I don't believe she's with us tonight. I can get that answer for you though.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So you need a motion to approve this revised warrant.
Please, Madam Chair. And the reason for that is that we'll post it when later in the meeting, when you schedule your public hearings, we'll post it with that notice.
All right, we need a motion to approve the Selectmen's Town Meeting warrant for June 14, 2022.
Madam Chair, I move that we present the public with the revised warrant presented to us on March 21st with changes.
That's Steve's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, this will be posted, but I will not ask the board to sign it until April, just to be clear.
Okay. Mark, you had a question?
Is this considered a draft?
It is, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We've got a public hearing.
Yeah, we have public hearings.
So should it say draft on it when the public picks it up?
It will.
Okay.
Any other questions before the vote? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next, you will find an event permit application from Rangeley Friends of the Arts.
Madam Chair, board vendor.
Yes, vendor, yes.
Thank you. The RFA vendor application for Joe Bosch Memorial Art Show, Lakeside Park, what's the date? July 30th, 2022.
Steve's motion
Second.
and Ethna seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move the liquor license for the Red Onion. Next year.
Steve's motion. And Shelley seconds. Any questions on this application? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
I will abstain.
Need a motion for, go ahead, Ethna.
Make a motion to approve the liquor license renewal application for Ball Campers.
Ethna's motion. And Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And those abstaining. So we have 4 in favor, 1 abstain. Next up, the Rangeley Health and Wellness Summer Concert.
Madam Chair, I move the Rangeley Health and Wellness Concert, July 29th. July 30th.
Steve's motion for the liquor license. Second. And Shelley seconds. Yes.
Can I ask that that be amended to say pending police sign off? Can I ask that that be amended saying pending police sign off? The police didn't sign off on this yet.
Pending police sign off.
Thank you.
Okay, motion
Second.
seconded, and Shelley has seconded that amended motion. Thank you, Ethna. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, in consent items, we've got a Depot Street kiosk request, and it is a permission to place from the Heritage Trust to place a kiosk there. And I guess, Joe, if you could just, you've got some notes here regarding that, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So currently we have one of the small wayfinding signs that was given to the town in storage. We're going to put it up in the spring. And throughout our discussions with the byway folks and the wayfinding meetings, there's an opportunity for us to have one of the larger kiosks to go at Depot Street. And I envision that to be in place of this smaller sign that may go somewhere else down the road. The kiosk has not been purchased yet, but it is included in the grant. The question from the byway folks is, would it be okay to put it at Depot Street? I support it. I think it's a great idea. The thing that Keith and I asked was, can we make it so that it's somewhat portable? Not meaning that we move it once a month, but if Depot Street the design for that, when it takes shape, if it's not where we want it, can we move it easily without hurting it? And they seem open to that. So it's not built, but they would like, before they order it, they would like permission from the town to locate it at that location. Of course, the front of Depot Street off the one side. So it won't affect traffic or anything, but accessible to pedestrians. So I'm asking for permission to place that when it comes in.
Ethna.
Do kiosks have to follow sign ordinances? And if they do, will this be in compliance with ours?
I would imagine yes, and yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes. go
How
ahead.
big is it?
I think it's 3 by 6, something like that. Roughly.
All right, this may sound petty, and I don't mean to be, so please bear with me for a moment. Is it going to take up a full parking space, or is the 3-foot dimension going to be facing the road and the 6-foot width? What I'm saying is, if it went this way, it would take up an entire parking space. If it went this way, it wouldn't. You follow what I'm getting at?
I do, Madam Chair, yes. The intent is not to encumber any parking. It's to put it so it won't affect the sidewalk, won't affect the parking, but it should be visible from both
Well, for everybody who's in Zoom land, I'm not opposed to it, I'm just asking where it goes. So I don't want any nasty letters.
Couple good questions so far. I like your and Keith's suggestion about the portability, since we haven't done anything with that property since purchasing it, so that's important. If there aren't any other questions, we need a motion. Oh, go ahead, Ethna.
I'll make a motion, permission to place the Depot Street kiosk as long as it's in compliance with our sign ordinance, should it have to be.
Second.
Ethna's motion, Steve seconds. Any other follow-up questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We have a congressionally directed spending request from our town manager, Joe. If we could go ahead and elaborate on this. It's great.
Certainly, Madam Chair. So another item that came up in the recent wayfinding scenic byways discussions was the fact that congressional earmarks have kind of come back into vogue. And we talked about what might be a logical item for us to pursue. And we, as you know, we're talking about the Lake to Library Trail and some other trail related items in Fawcett and possibly in between. There are other funding sources that may be available for those at the state level. So I got thinking about, what might we apply for. I know the chief applied. This is the same type of program that the AFG is. The AFG comes under this. The fire truck application was through this a year or so ago. That's much more competitive, very competitive. So I racked my brain and tried to come up with something that wouldn't compete with the suite of MDOT things that we're thinking about applying for Fawcett. Long story short, what I would like your feedback on, and hopefully permission to pursue, is presenting an earmark request, or letter of intent anyway, for the undergrounding of our wires in downtown Rangeley and at Fawcett. I've tried to lay out how that connects with mobility and the scenic byway and so forth. I know it's a plan of ours locally in the downtown plan. So the deadlines are fairly rigid. Senator King is the 31st. I think Senator Collins is the first or second week of April. I'm not sure about Jared Golan, although I do have his town manager toolkit. So at this point, I'm looking for permission from you to just send a letter of intent, which generates a discussion with them. I can have a phone call and say, is this a non-starter? Is this viable? Is this going to cause confusion in Washington if some other grant with the same scope comes down the pipe? So, the other thing I'll mention about earmarks is they're at least a year out. Could be a couple of years. That's why I'm thinking about getting the information in now and kind of letting that percolate for a while down there and get them talking about it if we can. So I'm looking for your authority to send a letter of intent to Congress, our congressional leadership, for the purpose of generating a discussion about that particular project and applying for it.
Yeah.
Question and a comment. Let me start with a comment first. Quite a few years ago, we looked at this before. It was deemed to be impractical and too expensive. However, we've neglected to push DOT, in my opinion, we've neglected to push DOT to fix the Haley Pond Bridge. And if you're going to do something underground, this is a perfect opportunity to work with MDOT to get the Haley Pond Bridge so it's continually going to be safe. And then that sewer line that goes through there and the water line too is going to need to be addressed. This is a big project to talk about. How do you plan on doing a Fawcett? And what's the burning desire to get something? Not that I don't want to see that go away or overhead, but would it be smarter to just Fawcett folks don't get pissed off here, but I mean, I'm just wondering if aesthetically it needs to be addressed as much as it does in Range. Are they calling the police on me already?
That's not us.
No.
24 status.
Whoever's, is that coming through Zoom?
It almost sounded like it. It's not
Yeah.
coming through our radios.
I don't see.
If all in Zoom could mute, we're getting some, what seems to be some sounds coming through.
Chief, do you have a radio on?
No, they caught it. I can
Okay.
see.
All right, thank you. All set. All set.
So, Madam Chair, the question, good question. I agree that the problem is more exaggerated or exacerbated in Range, say problem. The condition is more obvious in Range, more pronounced. The answer is that in the plan, in the downtown plan, it does say Rangeley and Boston. And this is where I have to kind of tiptoe with this, because one of the things that I intend to talk about with the Maine DOT as part of that planning partnership initiative is getting, maybe wrapping the undergrounding of the wires into that planning initiative in Quasit. So to answer the question about Quasit, if the town wants to move forward with the vision there with the sidewalks and the improvements for traffic, that would be the time to move those underground. And it probably would be the least expensive time to do that, because it could 20 years from now be more like that. Yeah. So.
Good luck. Thank you.
Steve, was your thought that, if Rangeley was solely looked at, that the grant request would be less and perhaps more appealing to be granted, or are you just?
I apologize to you all. I think mechanically and knowing, having a fairly good concept of what's going to take place, this is a monumental job.
Oh.
This is massive. But that's, yeah.
I like it.
And if they complain about tarring and road construction, wait till you see what Randy's going to look like. Oh, yeah. And where are you going to put all the signs that those poles are going? Sorry.
I've been waiting to get that one in, but he took it from me.
Yes.
I know this is a long shot grant anyways, so long as it doesn't impede any progress on the fiber optic networks, if it lands at the same time, I wouldn't want to consolidate and say, well, we'll put this off until then. And to Steve's point, being monumental, tearing the roadways up, when the water district finally comes across some big money from some grant, that entire street will get torn up at some point to put new water main in. So folks are going to be inconvenienced for infrastructure across America, for that matter, over the foreseeable future.
Any further questions or comments? So, so we need a motion to,
Madam Chair,
yes.
you have a question.
Mark, do you have any hand up?
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis.
I just want to make a comment. I've been involved in these, putting the lines on the ground for years, all kinds of studies. It costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. Not only just to put the lines underground, but remember, everybody's service has to go underground. You have to change all their services. That top circuit, there's two circuits that presently run along Main Street. The top circuit is a transmission tie to Ziska-Haas Dam. And that's 35,000 volts. You're not going to see, I'm just giving you my 30 years of experience at CMP, you're not going to see, because other places, you're not going to see power lines go underground. What they did do in Farmington is they shifted them off street. So theoretically, you could shift them off to go behind the buildings or to go down High Street. But to put them all underground on Main Street, we've visited that project.
We just had, was it last year that we had a resident come to us and ask for us to consider this project again that had been discussed years ago. So the request was made, at a meeting by a business owner for us to consider, revisiting it. So Dennis, is it a cost to a homeowner or a business owner to
It
change?
could be, because all the businesses in town, say you have overhead service comes in, because most of those come in. So now that service is on your building won't work, you have to put in an underground service and change your meter box and all that business, and you have to go underground into your building. So, yes, it would change everybody's service there, because then you're gonna have to locate transformers, pad transformers somewhere, so that you can access these lines, all the service cables. You'd have to put in a duct system, which would be basically a trench system right up through, and then feed all the wires and everybody's service into this trench system. They do have a little bit of that over in Rumford, but most of their circuits run down each side of the island. They've eliminated all the wires down Congress Street in the center, but all their street lighting is in a duct system. They dug it up and put all their streets, so now they have these fancy street light posts, But all their main feeder circuits that feed all the buildings are still aerial, but they feed the buildings from the two sides of the island. So unless you've got another way you can reroute that, totally putting it underground is, because it's two big circuits, it's quite a definite expense, definitely. Now, if the government's got all kinds of money, back in the 80s, when they ran in the 50-foot poles, in 1984, they changed all the poles on Main Street. That's when Fiscal came to. They put in 50-foot poles, got all the wires way up high. Back then, we were looking at it, and it was about $1.5 million, and that was 1984. You can kind of guess at what the cost would be.
So with that cost, did that pertain to moving the poles off Main Street, or was that just the?
That was to put it underground on Main Street.
Yeah.
Now, moving the poles off Main Street, you can do that too, but now you gotta take over property, you gotta get easements. And now everybody's service that's on the front of that building has to be moved to the back of the building, because you're not gonna feed it off the front of the building, obviously. There's quite a lot to it.
Yeah.
And I think Joe can get online, and you can find other towns that have done it or attempted to do it with just some ideas on what the prices cost.
Mhm.
But it is we've been doing it for years. It's not something that it lightly gets thrown around at every thing that you have, a public hearing thing that you have for downtown improvement, stuff like that. It always comes up. It always has. It has for years. And it's just, it gets rejected because of the cost.
Right.
If there's another way to fund it, I mean, it's not saying it can't be done, but.
Did you have a question?
Kind of a comment and a question, if I could direct it at Dennis, if that would be okay.
Sure.
So in the information that Joe has provided us, he did provide a cost estimate, or the most recent one. So we can see that that's an expensive cost. My concern is you almost made it sound like it wouldn't be feasible or underground wouldn't be attainable on Main Street because of the two over.
Attainable if you got enough money. Yeah.
Okay, so it is money-driven project.
Anything possible.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments? So what Joe is asking is for permission to submit this congressionally directed spending request on behalf of the town of Rangeley.
I move we allow the town manager to proceed with this notion about this grant to the congressional, whatever.
Congressionally directed spending request. So Steve's motion
I second.
and Ethan seconds.
I hope I live long enough to see this. That'd be pretty cool.
Any other questions or comments? Shelley?
So just in the letter, it says, and also on the state as whole, should be able. Steve, that's not my turn right now, because I didn't say it.
Last sentence, first paragraph.
Yep, last sentence.
Yep, see it. Thank you.
I think Steve covered that with whatever.
The eloquent motion. All right, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. All right, thank you, Joe. Thank you for, yeah, for all the research you did and the time you put into this. We have a request for appointment for the planning board from Valerie Sapolsky. This would be for an alternate position.
Madam Chair, I move Valerie Sapolsky for the alternate position on the planning board for a term of 3 years.
Steve's motion and Ethan seconds. Questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up is the airport CIP. Joe is asking for permission to send this on to the FAA. And it's a handout. It's also emailed last week. Last Friday, I think. Yeah, Joe, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'll go through the CIP for you, and I'll make it concise. So in year 22, which we're in, there'll be a repayment to IWI, which is Wisconsin, 56,100. That was a previously arranged situation there. So we owe them that. The grant for the runway reimbursement, it'll be somewhere around that number. I think it'll be a little bit less than that. We do have a town share, as you can see over in that column, 16,667. Plow blades. So initially, the previous CIP had the broom in it, the broom that you recently authorized us to purchase, which will be coming in a month or so. So that's come off. But in talking with Public Works recently, the angle blade in 2002 that came with the snow blower is ready to be replaced, which I've seen at my trips to the airport. When I walk by, you can see the cracks and it's been repaired, but it's lived its life. So we plug that in. Hopefully we can get that this year, but if we can't, we'll move it into 23. And just if I could skip all the way to the left for a second, there's the entitlement funds, and then there's the infrastructure bill. So the 110,000 we're getting this year. Recently found out that goes out for 5 years, but they said, just wait till year 2 or 3 to be sure that we're getting it. But I'm pretty confident that's more than just a 1 year allocation. It could be up to 5 years and 110,000. So that's included in the incoming column. So year 23, I'm just going to talk about project costs. I just kind of explained the incoming amounts. EA, environmental assessment for easements and tree clearing. So that's something that developed on the 32 end of the runway. There were some obstructions there. The FAA put out a NOTAM. One of the pilots called and said, "What in the world is this NOTAM?" Some trees that stick into the clearance zone there by 3 or 4 feet. I don't know how many. I thought I could go figure it out with the information I had. Long story short, it's going to require surveys. And then looking at the deeds, the work I did with Exhibit A and the deeds, I don't see any easements for clearing trees. So the first step in the whole process is an environmental assessment. And we're projecting that next year to an estimated amount of 50,000. That'll be our engineer that works on that, or our consultant. Go ahead.
So the tree clearing, that's on our own. We need an easement.
So the tree, a good question, Madam Chair. The trees that are giving us a problem are on private property.
Oh.
They're not on the airport property, they're adjacent to it. And I cannot find an easement that allows us to clear. I've spoken with the landowner, and he does not know of any easements, nor does he seem to be interested in having a lot of trees cut. So that is something that's now CIP issue. It's more than me just making a few phone calls and trying to get a couple of trees cut down. It's going to require, in my estimation, the right to clear any tree that could ever grow tall enough to be an issue for the airport. So that's a new item that's developed here in the last few months. And And it's not just in this one year, the environmental assessment will be in next year, it's the first prong of this project. So in 24, this is where we're getting into some real construction type of stuff. With design and construct apron reconstruction. So this is not new area, it's not new pavement, it's a rebuild of the apron that's really alligator crack. And alligator crack is the stuff that's got a lot of small patches and cracks in it. There's no cure for that with paving. You pave over it and telegraph and look exactly the same in a year if you're lucky. It'll usually be sooner than that. So that's got to be dug out and fixed. Here we have easement acquisition, and this is for the whole process. It's an estimate of 150. The design construct apron item was 472 for those listening. 473,000, and that's in year 24. So in year 25, we have I'm sorry, I skipped the repayment from 2 Bravo 0, which is Pittsfield. In 24, that's the first installment. They will have, we will now have 3 installments coming back in from Pittsfield.
No, I didn't realize it was in installments.
Well, it initially was not going to be, but they had, it's unfortunate, but they had an issue with one of their contractors, and they missed the deadline in Pittsfield, and the project is now a couple of years, going to be a couple of years behind. So that's where that's at. So in 25, another installment repayment from Pittsfield, the entitlement, of course, and then the infrastructure funds. This is where tree clearing will take place, the actual going and taking down the trees, provided we have the easements and all the permits and so forth. And this is another year where we do a real construction item, which would be design and construct taxiway for corporate hangars. So right now we have enough taxi lane to access 2 corporate hangar spots, and we have interest in corporate hangars. So I think we can facilitate. I think there are 2 people that have reached out to me, pretty serious interest. I think we can facilitate them on the short term. And then by the time we get to 25, we should have a good solid plan for how long we want that taxi lane to be to accommodate however many more corporate hangars, provided the economic climate at the time. And then in the year following, I believe is design, permit, construct T-hangar taxi lane road. So that would be an add-on to the T-hangars that are there. It would be pointed towards Saddleback or towards Moon Lake Road. I think the plan calls for 4 extra ones. But we'd have to build a taxi lane to access that. There'd be some design involved in that. We don't have to design it done yet. We're just planning for projects. Pavement maintenance in 28. And that's one of the themes the commission wants to do, is make sure we're taking care of what's there.
Right.
Take care of the pavement, make that known that we want to protect the airport that's there. And they seem to be focused on hangar development also. So, and then in 29, I think they call for master plan update. We'll see, see what the economy looks like between then and now, and what the needs are. But that's the CIP in a nutshell. At 4:20 this afternoon, the airport commission voted to recommend that I recommend this to you to send to the FAA. The FAA has given us a little grace period. We wanted it by the close of business, but I told them to get it after this meeting if the board was in favor of it. So I recommend this CIP as written. So is the airport commission.
Any questions for Joe?
Madam Chair, I move the CIPs present to the FAA as presented.
Steve's motion. Ethan seconds. I just have a question. So this tree clearing and private property component is, are we risking some legal action, or, is this, this is a very, for a few trees, a very expensive project. And yeah,
Good question, Madam Chair. So my original estimation of this was that it was a few trees. I got some some plots of points on a map, and we got a spreadsheet, and I went, permission, and through property, and I went with my GPS, and like, this could be 3 trees, or this could be 40 trees, I don't know. That's why we need to have a survey. And then long term, you're thinking about long term. So if you cut the 4 trees that are a problem right now, you could have 50 trees that are a problem in 10 years from now. So it's really how this developed and grew legs into, being an easement situation. Believe me, I did not want this to become another project on the radar, but I think it's the only way to approach this. I really do. It's one of the things I've talked with our consultants at the FAA about. I said, how does this work? And they said, well, typically these things don't come up until they're a problem.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's the boat we're in.
Okay.
And these are estimates. Hopefully they're not low estimates. Let me say that.
That's the only question I have on it. Any other questions? All those in favor? Moving on to correspondence, we do have one email sent to our administrative assistant and addressed to the Rangeley Town Council, which is us. To the Rangeley Town Council, there's some concerns. I'm sorry, this is from Ronald Wood, a Rangeley resident. I have some concerns in regard to the Rangeley Police Department. We are paying higher and higher taxes every year, and at some point, local people will no longer be able to afford to live in the beautiful town of Rangeley. It seems to me we all see many days a month with no Rangeley Police Department officer on duty and the Franklin County Sheriff's Department covering Rangeley for patrol. Why are we funding a police department that covers and patrols part-time and with only two police officers on town payroll? Chief French is at the Rangeley School working as an SRO for a few hours out of his shift and gets paid a stipend for these duties. This leaves town unpatrolled with no officer actively on patrol. I sadly feel the time has come to actively have Franklin County take over all patrol duties and remove the burden of paying for a police department that is not utilized. I fully understand the town of Rangeley would pay for the service of Franklin County. However, we would have a patrol unit in town, unlike now. I feel if not this year, then next year would be the time for Rangeley taxpayers to have the privilege to vote on this matter, as it's the Rangeley taxpayers who bear the weight of the Rangeley Police Department budget. I also feel the Franklin County Sheriff's Department are better trained and have better equipment than Rangeley officers. Sincerely, Ronald Wood. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, moving on. We don't have any old business. We don't have any new business. We have got department head updates. We're now the town manager report. And we've got the police department and the fire department currently in our packets. Fire department updates from 3/7 to 3/21. And a February update from Bailey from the planning department. Joe is asking us to officially schedule a warrant public hearing for April 11th at 5 p.m. Do you need a motion for that, Joe?
Please, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I move we schedule April 11, 2022 for the warrant public hearing at 5 p.m.
Needs a motion. And Ethna seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just, I'd like to point out for anybody listening that this is the meeting when the board would welcome nonprofits and donations to come in and speak. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Zoom link will be available.
Yeah, Zoom would be preferred, given the room size. Okay. And we'll share that with them on your behalf.
Super. All right, under town manager report, other business, we have a press release recommended or drafted by Linda Jones, the first assessor for Dallas Plantation. And this reads, grant awarded for high-speed broadband upgrade in the Rangeley region. Municipal broadband delegates for the Rangeley region met with Consolidated Communications representatives to confirm details of a years-long effort to bring state-of-the-art broadband to the Rangeley region. The U.S. Department of Commerce, through the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, awarded one of 13 grants to the Connect Maine Authority and its application partners. The Rangeley region broadband proposal was included in the grant request by CCI. Over $2 billion in grant requests were received by the NTIA for the $277 million grant opportunity. Awards were delayed by months due to the overwhelming response. The Connect Maine Authority and its partner applicants were able to meet the criteria ultimately necessary to win the grant award. The Rangeley Region Economic Committee, along with the broadband delegates from Dallas, Rangeley, Sandy River Plantation, and the town of Rangeley, are especially indebted to Jeff Nevins and Sarah Davis of CCI, Peggy Schaefer of the Connect Maine Authority, for the many years of effort in planning, negotiating, and supporting the regional broadband effort. The grant fully funds the replacement and extension of broadband service in all 4 municipalities with the latest generation of fiber optic cable. CCI will begin building the network in the 3rd quarter of this year with a projected completion date of early summer 2023. High-speed internet service starting at speeds of 50/50 and up to 1 gig. Over 1 gig will be offered at competitive pricing under the Fidium Fiber brand. Community updates will be provided as information is available. Just an
Nice job.
amazing accomplishment. An amazing accomplishment. So kudos to all of that. And so that is the press release going out.
Madam Chair, if you need a motion, I move that this press release be out.
Yeah, Joe?
Madam Chair, this has been released
Okay.
at this point, I believe. I just
Perfect.
shared it with you for your information. It is on our website, and I believe Chris has linked it to Facebook also.
So yeah, thank you to Linda for drafting that.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
it's in the latest edition of the Rangeley Highland version.
okay,
Came out this past Friday.
okay. Thank you. And a note here, the monthly financials have been provided. We've got next section, communication for select board. And Steve, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Ethan? Shelley? No? Ethna? I just have a couple of things. So a quarterly meeting with the
It's something we're working on, Madam Chair. Actually, Marty's the point person on it. I know that when I first started out with this before I spoke with Marty, I think she was out, I talked with Rangeley Plantation. April was not a great month for them, for reasons of vacation and so forth. But Marty is working on putting something together, and I'll put that probably in your next agenda, whatever the update is. We haven't lost sight of it.
I had a question. If someone asked me if we still needed this this 4-town group formed, if there's going to be, is there any future management required, or is, you know, this is all CCI and it's their baby, we just got them the money?
So, no, Madam Chair, there's no interlocal corporation required for this arrangement. The marketplace, CCI is going to do this kind of on their own. They're going to build it out in nodes, kind of at their own discretion. We've had people ask, you know, where are they going to start? You know, they haven't disclosed that. I don't know if they will. They're going to have it wrapped up by the end of next summer. That much I can tell you. But it doesn't require any interlocal corporation on our part. It doesn't require any funding from us. other than the users of it will have to pay their bills, obviously.
Okay.
And have not got an answer yet to the wires that are on the poles. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's just a leftover item. The only other thing I have was just a comment from an article in the legislative bulletin that was in our packets, and that's the bill proposes 5-fold increase in waste disposal fees. Which,
That one, huh?
yeah, I mean, it's it doesn't sound like it has much for legs, but it's like, you know, if not now, perhaps eventually. And I just didn't know if, you know, if you and Keith had much of a discussion about lowering, because I mean, they talk about average tipping fee, an increase from, you know, $1 to $5 per ton of municipal solid waste and 2 to 10. They're dealing with they talk about an average tipping fee of $77, which certainly isn't our average per ton, our tipping fee. So I just, that was scary to read.
We are aware of it, Madam Chair. We talked about it. Last time I checked, it was in committee. I believe it's scheduled for a vote yet. I know there's been some opposition to it from other towns. Testimonies, things of written testimony.
Did you see the one about population density? Did
Yes.
you read that?
Yes.
Did you see that one? Yeah.
Okay, that's all I
Coming down the
had.
pike, like it or not.
That's all I had for select board communication. We do not have an executive session, so motion to adjourn.
So move.
Steve's motion. And in seconds, all those in favor? And that's unanimous.
As a reminder, month of April, I'll zoom in, and I'll see
Yes.
you in there.
Yep.